Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of masters, compassion of our grand predecessor and predecessor, and transmitters, and everyone for giving me this chance to speak today. This is very valuable to me because as I prepare, I'm also learning, and then I will now share what I learned. So today I am talking about the 18th matriarch. After she passed away, her Buddha title is now 中华圣母, which translates to 中华, Divine Matriarch or Holy Mother. And she lived from 1895 to 1975, so a long life of 81 years. All right, so before I begin, a few questions to think about. These are questions that I thought about when I was preparing for the presentation. So the first one is, why should we care about her? Why should we care about historical figures in general? I am a teacher at an elementary school, and my students often ask me, why do we need to learn about people from the past if they're already dead? Like, why is that important? Okay. My second question is, what are similarities between you or me and her? Because we all come from the same place, we all have Buddha nature, I think we tend to think that these Buddhas are, not like me, it's unattainable, it's unreachable, but actually we do have similarities, and so I'd like you to think about that. And third, of course, she does things that we can't do, so what are qualities of her spirit that I should embody? Okay, so these are just 3 focus questions. All right. I'm going to do a brief background because actually when I was studying her, I didn't know much about the golden thread and the whole lineage system. So I'm going to cover that very quickly. I wish my sisters were here for this. Okay, so in terms of formal lineage, there have been 64 generations of patriarchs. Okay, does anyone know what a patriarch is? We hear that term a lot in the temple. Does anyone even know what that is? Who's a patriarch? It's a person? A person? But what's the point?
The point is, like, for instance, let's talk about the family. So the patriarch, like in your family,
Yes.
the patriarch would be your great-grandfather or something like
Right.
that. The elder of the family.
Exactly, very good. An elder of the family. And what does a patriarch mean in the Tao, specifically?
The now the person who is head of the teachers or something.
Good, the leaders and the teachers. And they have one very important thing that the patriarch of my family doesn't have. What is it?
Mandate.
Yes, the heavenly mandate, right. So this is a mandate that's not given by humans. It's passed down from God, generation to generation. And again, this is not something that we give. It's God's decision. So you can say that they're destined to be a patriarch. In the past, it was generation to generation. So the first one is Fu Xi from China. Is this correct? That's what my parents. All right. So Fu Xi from China, he's considered the first patriarch, and it goes generation by generation. So there were a total of 18 in China first, a long time ago, and then there were a total of 28 in Southeast Asia. So that includes like India, Nepal. A lot of the stories of the Buddha come from there, and then back into China. So 18 in China, and the last generation would be our 18th matriarch, who I'm talking about today, and the 18th patriarch. So they shared this position together. I'm not going to be talking about Shizun, the 18th patriarch, but I will be talking about the 18th matriarch. So Shizun is the patriarch. It translates into like teacher, reverend, and then Shimu, which translates into like teacher, mother, or holy mother. Yes. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay. I have a question. So the 18th position is the final one. And so why is it the final one? Well, what happened that there was an end to the generation? Does that mean we have no leader now? Like, what does that mean? Because they both passed away already, Shi and Shimu. So
The leader falls on the transmitters.
The transmitters, very good. And why do we no longer need a matriarch and patriarch?
It's not that we don't need them. Because it's the full, according to the I Ching, there's 64,
Yeah.
and that's a complete number, complete
Okay.
set.
Okay.
There's one more.
Okay, I didn't know that. Great. Okay. And I feel like there's another point, but I'll touch on that later. Okay. All right. So that's the background, and so now we are at the 18th, right? So the 18th is the final position. Okay. This is our Shimu. Her Chinese name is Sun Suzhen or Sun Huiming. She's the 18th matriarch. She is the reincarnation of a Buddha, of Yue Hui Pusa, Yue Hui Bodhisattva. So she was born with a mission. She was born destined to be the matriarch. And when she passed away, she became Zhenghua Shenmu. Okay. So is this correct? Because you said today is her birthday?
Yeah.
According to the lunar calendar?
Lunar
That's the
calendar.
lunar, right? Well, no, wait.
No, but today is the 28th.
No, yeah, that's the wrong
Yes,
date.
the date's not correct.
Well, that date, well, I don't know, that might have been
The American
the
day.
I don't know.
Yes.
The lunar date is September, what is it?
28th.
Yeah.
20,
9/28.
28.
Today's 9/28.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, gotta change it.
Let me fix that right this second.
8/28.
So we're talking about lunar calendar right now? We're
Yeah.
talking about, okay, lunar calendar is September,
Yeah.
No,
August.
August
28.
28th. 1895 is correct year though.
Lunar
Yeah, that
calendar.
should be that year.
Yeah, it
So
is
then-
August.
Okay, August 28th, and what does that translate into the American calendar?
It depends on the year that
Yeah,
she
it
was
changes.
born.
Oh, it
You
changes.
gotta go back.
You have to look
You gotta look it up in
You have to
Google.
look at it.
So clearly I am an American-born child because this is a confusing,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's
Okay,
different year to year.
it's different year to year, okay. So we're going by lunar calendar, yes. She was born then August 28th, 1895 in Shandong, China. Yes. Okay. Ever since
1896?
That's what it looked like.
Oh, it's 1896.
1896.
Are you sure?
Well, again,
She
Yeah.
passed away in 1975. And she
Yes, that's correct. I have that here.
solar, 90, not lunar. Solar.
What's solar?
Oh, no, it's solar calendar.
Solar calendar.
American
US.
calendar.
That means America. Oh,
Solar
okay.
calendar.
Should I fix it then? Should I leave it? Does it matter?
You can put like
It depends on how you.
Put a question mark and
Put
go
a
and
tilde.
research.
Around 1895. Okay. I'm sorry, Shimu, for getting your birthday wrong. Okay. She's definitely listening right now. Oh God.
Calculator.
You should look at the book in behind you there. So the skinny book.
You're not Shimu.
Right, the white ones, the gray one, right in front of you. On the right side, right
Oh,
side.
right side.
Right there. No, the
Right,
group,
this?
yeah. The group of,
This one.
yeah.
Should we do this now? Should we do this later?
Yeah, let him read. You continue.
Okay. Thank you, transmitter.
Is that
Ray.
No,
Okay.
There?
I don't think so.
Oh, is it behind? Oh, behind you, Ty. I think the lower one, yeah. Is that it? Carrie,
this,
where did we find? Yeah.
Yes.
Active
Yeah,
learning.
that's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Someone can look for us. Thank you. Okay. All right. And Shandong, China. Ever since she was a child, she was always very mild-tempered, virtuous. People call her like gentle, elegant, quiet strength. So ever since she was a child, she always practiced good family teachings. And then after she received the Tao in 1908, that is when she made this great vow to save all sentient beings from suffering in the world. Okay, that's just a general overview.
She was only a teenager then.
1908.
Yes.
Yeah,
She was a teenager.
like about
Very young.
10 years. Yeah, about 10 years old. Yeah,
Well,
right.
that's when she received the
When
best.
she received the Tao. Yeah.
Oh, now when she took the vow.
No.
No,
That's
no.
after
She like officially began her cultivation then, but I would say her tianxing, or the personality, her character, her Buddha nature was very apparent since she was born. Yeah. Okay, a long time passes. So she cultivates for a period of time. There's this famous story about the 17th patriarch when he was still alive. He gave this test to all the Tao members close to him regarding baozi. And so they were all together and there was a steaming pile of meat buns. And he said, the 17th patriarch, who everyone respects and looks up to, he said, oh, today we're going to have these meat buns. It's okay to have them. Something like, maybe he said there's no other type of food here, or he just said it's fine to eat these. Okay, and mostly everyone took it and ate it, or bit into it. The few people who didn't were the 18th matriarch and the 18th patriarch, and so you can say passed the test. They understood that no matter what anyone says, right, the principle, the truth is that I should not eat this, and so they followed the truth instead of following the person. So you can say this is a test of their character. Okay, and then in 1930, they officially received the heavenly mandate, this divine authority, right, to officially become the patriarch and the matriarch. All right, the official, I would say, what their big mission is to save all sentient beings in all three realms. Okay, question: what are the three realms? Okay, heaven, earth, and the underworld. What kind of heaven? Because there are two types.
No.
Right, so they need to save sentient beings in all three realms. So the Buddhas live in permanent heaven. They clearly don't need to be saved, right? And so it would be temporary heaven, earth, and the underworld. Okay, earth, we know what that means. It means propagate the Tao here, receive the Tao, propagate Tao, bring people, to become good people, and then they can return to heaven after they receive the Tao. What does it mean to save sentient beings in the underworld? They're already dead, so how do you save them?
Uplift the spirit.
Yes. Very good. Okay. To uplift the spirit, right? So if you're living here, you can decide to uplift your parents if you don't know where they are, if they never received the Tao. They may be in the underworld, and so you can uplift them, right? That's a very complicated process. And then what does it mean to save sentient beings in temporary heaven? How do you do that? Also uplifting, right. Or sometimes they can come and ask. They usually beg holy teacher to give them to let them receive the Tao.
Also, they have to have a special affinity with somebody that is still living in this world.
To receive the Tao through them, right? Yes. Because to be in temporary heaven, you would have to have been a virtuous person, but maybe you just didn't have the affinity to receive the Tao. So after a certain amount of years, you would have to come back down, which sucks. So I understand why they feel like they need to receive the Tao when their time has ended. Okay, very good. And this would be the first time that the Tao has been open to all three realms, right? Okay. So they're special because this is the first time that a man and a woman are matriarch and patriarch together, and this is the first period when when all three realms can be saved. Okay. It used to just be the earthly realm. Is this true?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, there's certain cases, yeah.
Okay. In general. Okay. Something worth mentioning is again, like I said, it's the first matriarch, the first and last matriarch. So what that means is that since the patriarch and the matriarch, they share this position together. In the past, it was very, very difficult, very rare for a woman to receive the Tao and then even become a prominent Tao member just because of societal conditions in the past, right? And so now that the divine mandate has been given to a woman, it means that all women equally, anybody who has the right affinity, regardless of gender, can now come receive the Tao and cultivate and become a leader, a transmitter, or a prominent member in the temple. So as a woman, we have especially her to thank that we can even be in this position today. I'm sure that if this was 200 years ago, I would not be up here talking. Yes. as a woman. So yes. All right, great. All right, so they got the divine mandate and they started their practice in China. Their work was spread by word of mouth, right? And by 1946, Tao had become prevalent in 36 provinces in China. Okay, great. All right. And then 17 years later, in 1947, something big happened. Shi Zhen passed away before her. He passed away suddenly on Mid-Autumn Festival, the night of then. And his countless disciples were stricken with grief, and they didn't exactly know what to do. You can say that everyone was so grief-stricken that the foundation of Tao was a little bit shook. And so Matriarch Sun, she took the reins in her own hands. She stabilized everything that was happening to continue the leadership and to continue the mission alone. All right. During her time, does anyone know who this is?
Grand predecessor.
He's in the small temple on the right, in the back.
No. Center.
Center.
Lower table. Center.
Of the
Of
small temple in the back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Table center.
Yes. He wears these round glasses. Yes. Yes.
The only one with glasses.
The only one with glasses, yes. He is the grand predecessor. Chinese name is Bai Shui Lao Ren, which translates to holy white water elder. Okay. That's right. So he was working with our 18th matriarch, our Shimu, and he had this grand vision to go to Xi'an to continue spreading the Tao. And then Shimu said she had also a vision. She just had the knowledge that no, don't go to Xi'an. She told him. She said go to the southeast. And she basically said that if you go to the southeast to spread the Tao, it will be very difficult for 10 years. But after 10 years of struggle, the Tao will be successfully propagated in that area. And she said, if this doesn't happen, then my mandate is fake. Then I'm a fake. Okay? And so Bai Shui Lao Ren, our grand predecessor, listened to her. And so he did go to the southeast. And does anyone know where that is? A small island nobody has heard of. Called Taiwan. Yes. Okay, so he was originally going to go to the west, to Xi'an, but then now he took it to Taiwan. Very good. And so he left with a bunch of Tao members to go pioneer the Tao in Taiwan because of what she said. All right, we will see if it's successful or not. All right, so 2 years later, China had the Communist Civil War. The Communist government won, and so during the takeover, it was very violent, and also the Communist government suppressed all major religions, and so they had to take refuge, all the Tao members. And so she secretly went to Hong Kong by ferry, and there's a story about that. Should I share the story? Okay. She was on the wanted list, and obviously, if you're on the wanted list, right, you cannot show your ID to get on the ferry anywhere. She would have to be illegal. And so they tried anyway. She approached the line where the officer checks for IDs, and for some reason, she and all the Tao members with her passed the line. And when that officer was asked later on, he said, "Oh, during that time, like a blank overtook me. My memories are foggy. I'm not really sure what happened." So then they just got on the boat safely, and then when they were on the boat, officers came to check door to door, IDs again. And it's a funny story. So the officer knocks on the door, and Shimu and the Tao members with her are hiding in the room, and one of the Tao members, she shouts out, "Oh, no one's in here!" And the officer is like, who's in there? And the Tao member, had a struck of an inspiration. And she said, I'm an officer. I'm already checking this room. It's fine. And so the officer said, okay. And then he moved on. Okay. So it's just a string of very strange, you can say a miracle. You can say a coincidence. But she successfully, ferried over to Hong Kong. During that time in Hong Kong, I think she was there for 4 years. She actually went back to China secretly to visit the Dao members who were stuck there, because not everybody was as lucky as her, could, take refuge somewhere else. And she, because she was so compassionate, right, she braved that danger to go visit them. And like the circumstance there was very bad. Like if you were a Dao member and they suspected you were just arrested and gunned down and shot without trial. So that's what happened. All right, and then she returned to Hong Kong after visiting. Then the grand predecessor, who is in Taiwan, he successfully snuck her into Taiwan, and that's where she would be for the rest of her life. Okay, it is in Taiwan that the thing she's most famous for happened. Does anyone know? This is what she's most famous for. What'd she do?
10,000 baht.
10,000 bahts. Okay, all right, very good. Yes, yes, you do get a point. So my mom, my mom does bows every day, and so sometimes we do 1,000 bows with her, and then even for me, 1,000 bows is a lot, and so Shimu did a 10,000 for a special reason. Okay, so if you think, we often think, I like to think that propagating Tao, introducing Tao to people in America, cultivating Tao in 2018 is very difficult. There's a lot of struggles. But truly, the difficulty of propagating and cultivating Tao in the past, back when she lived, was another level, next level difficulty. Because if you were in China, right, you were gunned down without trial for believing in what you wanted to believe in. And then in Taiwan, they thought they were safe, right? But actually, the reverse happened. So if you were in Taiwan and you were meeting in groups, they thought you were conspiring with the Chinese government. They thought you were Chinese spies. And so again, you were also arrested without trial, tortured. And so when Shimu went to Taiwan, that was the situation then. That was the political climate. So Tao members were being arrested and tortured. And then the police were trying to close temples. Refusing, basically, if one temple closes, the rest of them would begin to close. And so this would mean like a closure of the Tao in Taiwan. And so Shimu recognized how serious this situation was. And she asked God, she prayed. She said, why is this happening, right? You are the one who told me to go to Taiwan because this is where the mission is, but yet it's not working here. And the answer that she got was common karma. Would anybody like to explain what is common karma? Collective karma, yeah. Collective karma.
共业, right?
共业, yes. What is that?
Don't you know?
Yes, you do.
Explain it.
The Buddhists are taking down. The Buddhists are taking down points. I know most of us know.
So explain.
No, because they have in the past life they did something similar, and then which they had to pay that retribution in this life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. And what about the collective part?
That she had this common affair with affinity with people who are there.
Yes.
So then it just has to pay its part out.
Yes. Exactly. So we all understand karma, right? If you do something bad in this lifetime and the previous lifetimes, you do have to pay it back sometime soon. The collective part, yes. So basically, it was everyone suffering together for a karma that's added up. And so it doesn't really matter if on individual person, because you were caught in the group together, you would have to suffer together. So that's collective karma. I think an example that I remember of that also is the tsunami that happened in Japan maybe 10 years ago. Not the most recent one, the really big one.
2011.
Yes. Right, you can ask, some people died and it didn't differentiate between old and young, good and bad, everyone died together. And so the Buddhists explain that is collective karma, right? The karma that you accumulate as a country, ultimately everybody in the country would suffer. Right, so God told Shimu that this was happening in Taiwan because of collective karma, can't do anything about it. And so Shimu said, no, I'm not going to give up on my disciples. I'm going to do what I can. So she vowed to help her disciples, and what did she do? She put herself in house arrest. So she just locked herself in her house, in her room. She said, I'm not leaving my room until the situation gets better. And so what did she do, right? She did 10,000 bows every day. You may think that this does nothing because she's not going out and doing anything, but the reality is she couldn't have gone out and done much. And so she said she's going to do what she can spiritually. It's like a sacrifice. It's like what a mother would do for her children. And so she said, that this common karma that everyone is suffering through together, let me shoulder it. I will burden it. And to show my sincerity and proof that I would, I'm going to do 10,000 bows every day. So she did this for, I don't know how long. Does anyone know how long?
Until everything settles down.
Yeah. And so the story goes that the morning of, she had kotoed all through the night into dawn. And she was doing the temple, and then that morning, the birds chirped, and sunlight streamed through the windows of the temple, and it was a beautiful morning. And that's when she knew that things would get better, that God had given her that promise. Okay, right? We will lessen the burden. And so, what is the result of that, right? So gradually, the Tao members were released, not being tortured, not being arrested. The notices that the temples would close, they were gradually pulled back, rescinded. And so the Tao gradually spread, and it leads to what we know today, the community we have today. So spread from Taiwan to the rest of the world. The Tao is now in over 100 countries in the world today. And so 18th Matriarch Shimu was a really big part of that, because if the Tao was not successful in Taiwan, it couldn't have gone back to China, and it would have just stopped there. Okay, any questions so far? No. Okay. All right. There is this famous story about her and a watermelon slice. I'm going to share it to further describe her character. Basically, in Taiwan, it's very, very humid and very hot. If you have been to Taiwan, you would know. And so, back then in the temple, there's not a lot of money. And so one of the Tao members asked Shimu, let me buy you a juicy slice of watermelon. And she's like, no, it's going to be too expensive. And so the Tao member, of course, secretly bought it anyway. It was $1. And then the Tao member gave it to Shimu. And the Shimu said, oh, wow, thank you. How much did it cost? And it was originally $1, but the Tao member knew that she would think that that's too expensive. So she lied, and she said it's 50 cents. And then even at 50 cents, she said, oh, no, like that's too expensive. I'd rather drink a cup of water than spend this 50 cents that can be used to help other living beings, not me, but to propagate the Tao. And so even, a monetary amount as little as 50 cents, she'd rather not use it and not spend and give it towards a bigger cause. So that's the story. Okay.
And watermelon is her favorite fruit.
Watermelon is her favorite fruit. Yes. We might think 50 cents is nothing. I'll just eat it in 3 seconds. But for her, she knows that, adding it up, it could really make a difference. There's no difference that's too small. All right. Maybe this date is also not correct based on these calendars. But she passed away at the age of 81 in 1975. When she passed away, she became Zhonghua Shenmu, or Zhonghua, Divine Matriarch, or Zhonghua, like Holy Mother. And her great virtue and compassion, we still remember it and talk about it today, hence this class. Yeah. Okay. Before we do that, okay, so back to the questions that I posed in the beginning of the class. Would anyone like to share the answer number 1? Why should we learn about her? Why should we even learn about people that passed away from history? Because this is a question that all of my students in school ask me. So what is the importance of learning about anyone who passed away?
look at me. I need the
I know she wants to
watermelon first.
answer.
All right, I'm gonna ask. They're subtly shaking their heads. I'm going to. Can I ask one of my sisters who recently came out of school, and actually they're still in school.
It's important to learn about history, historical figures, and history in general because they shape our lives today and they will continue to shape our future. And when historical figures, they pave the path for us to be where we are today.
Okay. Good. Anyone else? So we learn about what they did, the sacrifices they did, so we can be so we know to be thankful, right? And anything else? Should I say it?
I think you should hand out the watermelon first.
I don't have watermelon. It's not even the season for it. I like to tell my students that we learn about people who did good things so we can learn from them. And then we also learn about people, for example, like Hitler, so we know what not to do. So we learn from the mistakes that we made in the past. Great. As for number 2, if you see any similarities between her character and your character, great. We should continue to cultivate those. And for number 3, qualities of her spirit that she has that maybe we don't do so well, maybe we're not so good at. I hope we can, I hope for all of us, including me, that we can continue to cultivate that as well. Okay, this is a song that honors her. In the song, they have some 训文 by her, some scripture by her when she channeled through after she passed away. And so I would like us to read it together. The translation in English. Okay, it's a little long. All right, cultivating. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Cultivating Tao is to cultivate yourself genuinely, to rid yourself of temper and bad habits. In learning Tao, one's mind is awakened. Outer appearance is not important. The most important is restraining the fickle heart at every moment. Hurry to fulfill your vows and cultivate to return to one's original nature. I hope disciples earnestly learn the Tao. If one does not understand, then one must ask. One must learn and listen clearly, and most importantly, commit it to your heart. Clear? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to play the song. And there is translation. I would say the translation is pretty good. Let's hope it works. Oh, is the speaker on though?
Yeah.
Yes? Let me just check really quickly. Okay. Okay. Any questions?
You need to correct your.
Yeah, so
1908 should be 1918. You should say, yeah.
1918?
Yeah, so she wasn't.
Oh.
She was 22.
19... No.
Yeah.
1918. That would make more sense. Okay. All right.
Did you get the birthday right? Like 1896.
1896.
There we go.
1896. That was unusual. Okay. Well, I ask for forgiveness from the Buddhas and the saints and from Shibu herself and from everyone for my errors. I hope I can do better next time. Thank you everyone for giving me the chance to speak and to learn with you today. Okay, if you have any other questions, please ask them. Okay. All right, thank you everyone.
Any questions or comments? So I guess they let you off the hook.
Actually, when she passed away, right, it's the same day that
Chiang Kai-shek.
is it Chiang Kai-shek, right? He was
really?
the, I don't know,
Dictator.
dictator, I guess, of Taiwan at the time.
Wasn't he the president?
Yeah, dictator. Well, he
And
was.
he's a dictator?
Well, he was a military ruler.
Yeah.
Military ruler. So yeah, so he passed away the same day. So a lot of people thought, oh, because he's more well known. Obviously, they thought, oh, it's
Everyone was crying.
Everyone was crying for him.
Because of the rain.
But actually,
It was raining.
Yeah. Because
Was there a miracle like blackout or something?
it's just that the weather was really bad.
Not that day.
I heard that they still, a lot of people still doesn't know where she buried race sites remain
I
unknown?
don't know.
Only
Well,
like a few people know.
How
Yeah,
many?
well, when she was alive, when she was, secluded, yeah, only a few people also knew where she was. I mean, because otherwise the government would try to, catch her.
Well, no, by the time that she was secluded.
By that time maybe.
Yeah. Because during the reign of Chiang Kai-shek, he imposed martial
Right.
law in Taiwan, martial law.
Right.
Like when you have curfews and all that stuff, yeah, that's martial law. And so therefore there were a lot of laws against general assemblies. In other people getting together, that's considered general assembly gatherings. So since when you're in a temple, you have to keep together, of course. So that's why it was very difficult for them to propagate the Tao. Now keep in mind, in 1949, when Communist China officially became communist, okay, Taiwan was basically, I guess, not involved.
Well,
So
it's the
therefore, the
nationalists.
nationalists moved over. Okay, now this is right after World War II, right? Because 1945 was when Japan surrendered. So prior to 1945, Taiwan was under Japanese occupation, right? And so what they did is they changed the educational system so that Japanese was taught. So that's why many of the elders today in Taiwan, they can speak Japanese, no problem. Okay, but the young one did. So that's why even when the nationalists came over, they spoke Chinese normally, but there was a lot of people in Taiwan, of course, spoke what? Japanese. So therefore, again, there was. So you could say on the one hand, there is some difficulty with language when you're trying to propagate it down too, right?
Plus they
Because
have their own dialect.
well, there's the local dialect as well, of course, but the official language, prior to Japan's surrendering was Japanese. Okay, so there was one problem, and then of course, since originally the economy of Taiwan was tied to China, mainland China, originally, of course, when Japan was still in power, so to speak. But then after Japan lost and then the communists took over, the economies got sort of like, I don't know, completely separated or something like that, you want to call it that? So therefore, the finances of the people, like for Lao Chen, the great grand predecessor, who came to Taiwan, because remember, he came over, right? Or not just him, but all the people, let's put it that, anybody who came from mainland China to Taiwan saw and couldn't go back after the communist takeover, saw their financial situation became very dire, very bad, because what happened is that China developed their own financial system, and the nationalists in Taiwan decided to do the same thing. And so the money that you bring from China was sort of like worthless almost. Because they want Taiwan wanted to develop their own whatever
10,000 to 1.
Whatever, yeah, right. It was very bad. So therefore there was also a financial situation. So besides some language barriers, you have also the financial situation, and then you have martial law. So on top of that, so it made it very, very difficult to propagate the Tao. And in fact, like Karen mentioned, that because the dictatorship government, so to speak, was very paranoid about people gathering, right? And since we gathered, so therefore that's why a lot of our Tao seniors, if you will, were imprisoned. And so, and when in those days, torture wasn't really. Torture was kind of common, not like today where you have a lot of laws against that. But so therefore, a lot of our seniors really endure a lot in prison, etc. And then so the self-imposed house arrest, I guess you want to call it, was really just that. Was really that. It was really a form of arrest or a method by the government to prevent the leader, because she was sort of like recognized as a leader in the Tao community, right? To prevent the leader from visiting her disciples, so therefore, to make it easier for her disciples, she imposed self-imprisonment, I guess, in her house. Okay, and that's when she started doing the 10,000 vows or whatever. Did one thing I wanted to anything else besides that? I mean, I said it a little bit long, but that's the reason why it was very difficult in China. Yeah. Of course, when she told our grandparents to go to China, I mean to Taiwan, go southeast, I guess, and she had mentioned, her mandate would not be real if he wasn't successful. You have to really wonder, what the grandparents saying. Goes, oh yeah, but I won't know until 10 years later.
He trusted her anyway.
Yeah, but he trusted her. Yeah, see, our grand predecessor also was really already had received the Tao, was already in the Tao community when the Patriarch was still there. Remember the Patriarch, right? Both were still there. He was already, involved with the Tao community. Okay, it's just that when our Patriarch returned to heaven, and there were every time we have events like that or similar events like the meat buns, we call it buns, I guess, yeah. Every time you have a situation like that, there's always I guess you could say a confusion, I'll call it confusion, in the Tao community. So the Tao community went through a period of confusion also when the 18th Patriarch left. Okay, and so our grand predecessor was one of the many, well, not all, but many of the disciples of both, the Tao community who decided to follow the Matriarch. Okay, because not necessarily all the disciples followed her. Okay, so in fact, since the 16th Patriarch, it all started, I think, with the 16th Patriarch. No, I don't know, but since the period of the 16th Patriarch, before 17, the Tao community went through a lot of different levels of testing, if you will. So, because prior to that, you don't hear too much about tests because it was always for certain, who was the next patriarch, who was the next patriarch. It was almost certain. But after the 16th, it became very heaven does not, or not just heaven, but the prior patriarch does not just go out and say, oh, okay, you're my next, you're my successor. So it's kind of interesting that between the 16 and 17, we know what happened, right? It's the change of the period, right? We went from red to white because 17 and 18 are considered the only two patriarchs, I'll call it two generations that are in the white era, right? So the quote unquote, you can say, I guess, you can say this the red era ended with the 16th, sort of. I mean, there's no really, because there's really a lot of overlap. But anyway, so with the start of 17, we have a lot of not only universal propagation. Universal propagation started with the 18th. That's true. The 18th generation. Okay. It officially became because Si Zun and Simu, he himself was a little bit surprised when he said, "Wow, this is I'm told now this is the universal salvation of three realms." Okay. But remember, prior to that, they already have uplifting and all that stuff. Okay, already. So, but universal salvation, we talk about the temporary heaven saints and the spirits of the underworld. Yeah, it just became sort of like official. But prior to that, there was already uplifting that can be done. Remember, because after all, our patriarch uplifted his father, right? And that was during the period of the 17th patriarch. He himself at that time was not a patriarch yet. So it can be assumed that prior to the official announcement of the universal salvation, there was already some uplifting, but it was only under, I guess, special cases. Okay. By the way, do we have a date on the time when the 17th patriarch did that fun test?
No, it's like some vague story.
No, it's just a story, huh? Okay. No, I'm just curious to see when it happened. Okay. Yeah, because the reason why he says the 17th patriarch did that was because he said, oh, it was so difficult, propaganda now. You know, it was like everybody, you know, we're all tired and all that stuff, and
Have some buns.
yeah, and then he says, you know, he goes, we don't need to be vegetarians anymore. Is what he was trying to say. That's why.
Yes.
Yeah, well, but of course, yeah, and it wasn't really to all his disciples. Essentially, it was to mainly the senior disciples, his senior disciples. Okay, that's why not everybody necessarily knows about this bun test. And but yeah, matriarch and patriarch were the ones. At least they were two of them. I don't know how many actually refused to eat. Okay, the story goes everybody else ate. 17 and 18 did not eat it, and so therefore, you know, they sort of quote and pass the test. Right?